For a great cup of joe, there's one thing you should know. Your morning brew can also be playful. Buff Boy Brewing guys make the temperature rise, and you surely feel naughty when you swallow our coffee. If you want some real heat, give your mouth a fine treat. You will want some more, rest assured. Buff Boy Brewing, you can't get enough of.
It's time for The Scribble, your weekly fix of celebrity chats, bizarre stories in the news, and basic random chatter with best-selling author and syndicated radio host Jeremy Bradley. Make sure your seat is in the upright and locked position and your barf bag is securely in place. Here's Jeremy Bradley.
Thank you very much, Larson. Jeremy Bradley here. Welcome to The Scribble. Thanks so much for tuning in on SoundCloud and iTunes and at thescribbleshow.com. It is June 12th, 2015. Normally we don't say the date because sometimes these shows are taped weeks in advance, but we are live today bringing you some sad news from the country music world that Grand Ole Opry star Jim Ed Brown has passed away. You know, Jim was on our syndicated radio shows earlier this year talking about how at the age of 80 he fought and beat cancer. At 80 years old. Think about that. That's a time in your life when you should be relaxing, enjoying some well-deserved time off, and he was going through cancer treatments. So as the country music world and the Grand Ole Opry families mourn, we're bringing you this special episode of The Scribble and playing you some previously unaired parts of our interview from earlier this year. Jim Ed Brown, dead at 81 years old following a second battle with cancer that was just announced earlier this month. So whether or not you are a country music fan, I hope you're going to tune into the whole show. This isn't about any sort of music genre. I want you to learn about the kind of man this was. I got chills hearing him talk about the diagnosis and how he handled it when he got the bad news. And, you know, I'm getting goosebumps right now actually just saying that to you. And we're going to play you that clip in just a bit. But first, let's take a look at the life of Jim Ed Brown, whose career in music spanned decades and decades. Born in 1934, the native of Sparkman, Arkansas, was one of 5 children and of a struggling lumberman and his wife. Some of his earliest memories are of close family times when all of the members of the household would gather on Saturday nights to listen to the Grand Ole Opry on a battery-powered radio. Jim Ed and his older sister were fascinated by what they heard and soon began harmonizing together. A few years later, Jim Ed and his sister began occasionally performing on local radio shows. By Jim Ed's second year in college, he and his sister were regular members of the Barnyard Frolic on KRLA in Little Rock, and together they penned what was to become their first hit record, Looking Back to See. Released on a small label in 1954, Looking Back to See provided the necessary momentum to bring the pair to national attention. They became members of the Louisiana Hayride and went on to join Red Foley as featured regulars on the Ozark Jubilee in 1955. Later that year, younger sister Bonnie joined them as the Browns, and they scored immediate top 10 hit, Here Today and Gone Tomorrow. The group signed with RCA Victor in 1956, and 2 number 1 releases followed in quick succession, I Take the Chance and I Heard the Bluebird Sing. Jim Ed's career took a vastly different turn when he was called to a 2-year stint in the service. After his discharge, he rejoined his sisters to record the song which would leave the indelible mark on music history, The 3 Bells. Released in 1959, The 3 Bells sold over 1 million copies and created a sensation as the first number 1 country song ever to cross to number 1 on the pop and rhythm and blues charts as well. After a 2-year break, the Browns were not only back, they were more in demand than ever. Other classic hits included The Old Lamplighter and Scarlet Ribbons soon followed, and in 1962, the trio joined the Grand Ole Opry. By the mid-1960s, however, the rigors of combining busy careers with caring for their growing families brought both Bonnie and Maxine to the decision to permanently retire from the group. Jim Ed was left to carry on alone, and in 1966 he scored his first solo success with Papa Top Again. Through the 60s and 70s, he continued to grow as a star in his own right, and more hit singles including Southern Loving, Sometime Sunshine, and Memorable Morning. A 6-season run as co-host of the weekly television series Nashville on the Road began in 1975, further enhancing Jim Ed's career and leading to his being selected as a national spokesperson for Dollar General stores. Then in 1976, he teamed up with Helen Cornelius to form one of the most successful recording duos duos of all time, with smash releases like Don't Bother to Rock and Saying Hello, Saying I Love You, Saying Goodbye. Jim, Ed, and Helen also set an industry record when Lying in Love with You made the largest single country chart leap in history, vaulting from 0 to 19. In 1983, Jim Ed started working with TNN on You Can Be a Star for 6 years, and he co-hosted a show with his wife Becky, Going Our Way. For years, Jim Ed was a favorite at the Grand Ole Opry and performed around 30 shows per year on the Opry, as well as performing a number of shows on the road. In addition to his radio and television commitments, Jim Ed continued to tour throughout the nation, where he presented his down-to-earth brand of family entertainment to an ever-growing legion of fans. Certainly a true legend in the country music world. Our salute and tribute to Jim Ed Brown continues right after this.
Are you tired of commuting to a job that makes someone else rich, working harder than ever, but getting nowhere? Do you hate spending hundreds of dollars every week on daycare, having someone else raise your children? With our opportunities, you can start earning money as soon as next week. You get to be the boss, work from home, and live a happier life. At Be the Boss Network, you'll find hundreds of work-from-home opportunities that you can literally start today and be earning money as soon as next week. Go to freedom41.com and start earning money as soon as next week. You get to be the boss. Get out of the rat race. Work from home. Go to freedom41.com right now and change your life today. That's freedom, the number 41.com. Go to freedom41.com and start earning money as soon as next week. You be the boss. Go to freedom41.com.
Jeremy Bradley here, back on the Scribble. Thanks so much for tuning in as we continue our salute to Jim Ed Brown and pay tribute to a country music legend, really. You might recall that in his 80s, at 80 years old, he was diagnosed and battled cancer, beat that within months, and was releasing an album and performing again like nothing had happened. And just earlier this month, his daughter posted a message on Facebook saying, "This is a prayer request. They worked before, so I'm hopeful that they will this time too. Dad's cancer has returned, not in his lungs, and he is undergoing chemotherapy. We're hopeful for a positive outcome, but it's a combination of hope and prayers that will get him through this. We all thank you in advance." And unfortunately, Jim Ed Brown lost his battle with cancer. So when he appeared on our radio shows several months ago, we had a talk about his new music. He had just put out a new CD. And then we got into the cancer talk, and I have to say, I mentioned earlier that, getting goosebumps, talking about, this is a guy who was 80 years old, didn't let it slow him down, and just said, you know what, do it, you fight the hell out of this thing, and you get it out of me, because I'm going to beat it. And he did, and it worked that one time. Unfortunately, as his daughter Kim said on Facebook on June 3rd, unfortunately we know that it didn't work this time around. But nevertheless, a country music legend, and I used that word legend when we first got on the phone. Now, here's something really interesting, because when we do celebrity interviews on our show, we are recording from the very beginning. Now, not everything airs. You don't always hear every single thing that we say, right? Because we have the formal start to the interview. But we do have what we call the icebreaker round, which is, often about a minute and a half of, we shoot the breeze, right? If I've never talked with the person before, we kind of get to know each other and get a sense and a vibe of how the interview is going to go. And, obviously, Jim Ed Brown had done many, many interviews in his time, so I wasn't concerned that, he wouldn't know how to do it. But it was just great and refreshing talking to him. And I want you to hear this part. We never air these things, by the way. These are typically, off-the-record sort of moments. But I think that it just goes to show the true gentleman that he was when I used the word legend. Well, take a listen to how he responded. This is going back a few months early in 2015. How are you?
I am doing fine. How are you, sir?
I'm good, thanks. Thanks so much for calling today.
Well, you know what? It's my pleasure. I appreciate your letting me come into your household and talk to your many listeners. That's awfully nice of you. Thank you.
Oh, absolutely. A true music legend, so I appreciate you making the time. So,
golly. Well, I don't put myself in that category yet, Jeremy.
But it still feels good to be called that, right? I mean, come on.
Well, I guess it's okay. I am more of a. I'm more of a a fan than I am anything else.
Okay.
I love the business and I love the people that I work with, and all my peers and all. But anyway.
Perfect. All right. Back here on the Scribble, that is the sign of a true legend. When he doesn't put himself in that category, Jim Ed Brown, I hate to tell you, you're wrong. There's millions of country music listeners that say you are a true legend, and I'm going to stick to calling you that. So you can fight me all you want. You are a true legend and a true gentleman. You just get such a warm feeling. And I say to him in the interview that you're going to hear in just a little bit that country music fans and just country music people in general, artists, writers, performers, fans, it's just there's a realness about country music, and truly he is a shining example of that. When we come back, we are going to jump into that interview from earlier in 2015 with Jim Ed Brown. Again, in case you're tuning into this podcast, you've already heard by now that he passed away with his second battle with cancer, just months after beating it the first time around. More about Jim Ed Brown, and we're going to hear that interview in just a moment.
Ever had something to get off your chest but never had the balls to say it? That's a load of crap. Speak Free with JB.com is exactly what you've been waiting for. Your chance to tell it like it is and not care what anybody else thinks. Have your say on issues of the day. Join newspaper and radio columnist Jeremy Bradley as he tells it like it is. Hundreds of thousands of people have stopped by, including some well-known celebrities who have had a chat with JB and speak candidly about what's really going on in the world. You can join them too. Have a rant or a rave. Be brave and head on over to www.speakfreewithjb.com now.
Jeremy Bradley here, back on The Scribble. Thanks for tuning in at thescribbleshow.com on SoundCloud and iTunes. For those of you who are tuning in this week and you were expecting to hear our Men's Night show featuring Jerry Springer and Hulk Hogan, unfortunately, we are moving that to next week. So actually, that's the second time now that we have actually bumped that show. Last week, you might recall that we had Hell's Kitchen finalists Megan and T joining us, and that was sort of a last-minute interview, the two interviews that we had added in, and so we ended up moving Men's Night to this week. Unfortunately, the sad news of country music legend and Grand Ole Opry favorite Jim Ed Brown passing away at 81 years old. We felt to do him justice and pay honor and tribute to a great man, that we are going to move Men's Night to next week. So you're going to hear Jerry Springer and Hulk Hogan next week on the show, and then we're going to get back into our regular routine, because the week after that, we are talking about boy and girl bands. Howie D from Backstreet Boys, Spice Girl Mel B, one of the Hanson brothers will join us, and, my favorite, Nick Lachey from 98 Degrees. That's all coming up in a couple of weeks. So Men's Night is June 19th, Boy and Girl Band Stars on June 26th, and on July 3rd, we are once again digging into those cheapskate tips that I love telling you about from my best-selling book. But back to Jim Ed Brown, when we had an interview with him earlier this year on our syndicated radio shows, our Top 40 and country music shows, he talked about getting back into recording decades later, and now the music industry is hugely different. We also touched upon his battle with cancer that happened last year and how he beat it within just a few months. So we're going to play it in two parts. Here is Jim Ed talking about his brand new music and getting back into the recording studio.
Celeb spotting on the Scribble.
He has spent decades in the music biz, so if there's anybody who knows country music, it's Jim Ed Brown. He's joining us on the line today. Hello there, Mr. Brown.
Good morning to you. Or good hello, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm doing great, thank you.
Good. Well, first off, I have to say congratulations. Such a long career in music, in a group and solo. We rarely see that type of success these days. You started out in the 50s. And the music industry really is different now, isn't it? It's changed quite a bit from when you started out at that small record label.
Well, it has changed an awful lot. It's got to be big business. Whenever I started, it was, most people did it because, of their love of the business and just the fact that they wanted to get on stage and sing their songs. Today, there's a lot more involved. You've got a lot more people involved nowadays than you had back then, because I remember back then, if you just had somebody to book you, that was a pretty good deal. Nowadays, you got managers, all of those other things, and the recording business has changed a lot, from the one-track machines that we had back then in the 54s to nowadays where you've got unlimited tracks, so it's changed considerably.
And so, having just released this, I guess it's your first solo album in about 30 years. Your first solo album in 30 years. A lot has changed,
That's a long
though.
time, isn't it, Jerry?
It is, now, but a lot has changed, as we were just saying. So, what was it like to go back into the studio compared to what it was like decades ago? Big change, I'm
Well,
sure.
I was a nervous wreck, for one thing. No, I wasn't really. I've been singing, all through the years, and I haven't stopped singing, put it that way. And I've been in the studio a few times, doing different things, but just recording some things that I wanted to keep for myself. And I told my wife, I said, sweetheart, if something happens to me, then there are 75 songs here that somebody will come up and say, hey, have you got anything that Jimmy hadn't released? And you can say, yeah, I've got 75 songs here. What do you give me for them?
And what's interesting, though, too, is you were talking about people recording for the love of the music. And that's actually what I found doing our country music show for the past few years, is that
Right.
country music fans are so dedicated to the art. It's the realness of the country music that just brings everybody back, right? I'm sure you've experienced that over the years.
Isn't that great? The fans are still there. The fans are still very strong. And through the years, if you had a group of fans that followed you, they followed you religiously. And I think they're still doing that today with the Brad Paisleys and the Craig Morgans and all the others, that are out there.
Let's talk about your new album that just came out. It's called In Style Again, right?
Good. Yes. I love that, Jeremy. That gave me the opportunity to go back and do some songs that I've been holding here for a long, long time. In fact, one of them goes back to 67 or 68, right along there. And another one goes back into the 70s, whatever. I found a song over in Europe, and I brought it over here. Tried to get the Browns to go back in the studio with me at the time. But they said, no, we're retired. You go ahead and do it yourself. But I didn't. I just kept it. But anyway, it's called When the Sun Says Hello to the Mountain. But I got Bonnie back in. Maxine wanted to do it, but she couldn't travel for some reason at that particular time. So Bonnie came in and did her part as well as Maxine's part. But I think it's a great song, and I love it. It's a throwback to the years of the Browns, which goes back into the 50s and the 60s and all. But I love that album. Helen Cornelius and I got to do a duet on it, and it's Vince Gill came in and surprised me and did a part on one of the songs. But Jeremy, it was just I had so much fun doing this. Don Cusick gave me the opportunity to do the songs that I wanted to do, and boy howdy, I just love it.
Isn't it incredible, though, that you have a piece of work from decades ago that you're just now putting out there for people to hear? Like, I think the music industry these days is so impatient, right? Like, you've just got to get it out there fast. And
I know.
And then you can... Go ahead.
You get it out there fast, but, their songs, they keep them out there for a long time. Now, I remember whenever we were first starting, if you wanted to build a career, you put a song out about every 3 months. But anyway, sometimes they'll put a song out once a year, but they put the album out, and that says a lot, too.
Mm-hmm. Where do you get the energy to keep doing this? I mean, a new album and you're 80 years old, right?
I don't feel like that. I tell everybody I'm 67. I don't know. I've always been pretty good whenever it comes to, having energy and, doing the things that I need to do. I still love to get out. I still love to hunt and fish. I do a lot of that. Little Jimmy Dickens and I went to Alaska a few times together, hunted and fished, but we have places here in the States where we go all the time. But I love to get outdoors. I was raised out in the outdoors. I was raised in the logging and lumbering business, and I still love to get out there. And if you're going to get out there, you better have your energy up. So I've kept it up pretty well.
Are you tired of commuting to a job that makes someone else rich, working harder than ever, but getting nowhere? Do you hate spending hundreds of dollars every week on daycare, having someone else raise your children? With our opportunities, you can start earning money as soon as next week. You get to be the boss, work from home, and live a happier life. At Be the Boss Network, you'll find hundreds of work-from-home opportunities that you can literally start today and be earning money as soon as next week. Go to freedom41.com and start earning money as soon as next week. You get to be the boss. Get out of the rat race. Work from home. Go to freedom41.com right now and change your life today. That's freedom, the number 41.com. Go to freedom41.com and start earning money as soon as next week. You be the boss. Go to freedom41.com.
Jeremy Bradley back here on The Scribble. Thanks for tuning in at thescribbleshow.com on SoundCloud and iTunes. Once again, apologies if you were expecting to hear Jerry Springer and Hulk Hogan on Men's Night. We just felt that the death of Jim Ed Brown, a country music legend, was a little bit more important to focus and pay respect and tribute to. So earlier you just heard a part of an interview that we ran on our syndicated radio shows, Top of the Charts and The Open Road, just a few months ago. And then the subject turned to Jim's battle with cancer. And, of course, that first round he ended up beating. And, again, I can only imagine at 80 years old. You know, there's some people who have that woe is me thing at 20, 25, 30. And, yes, I agree that that's a very young age to, you know, battle cancer, even, you know, kids that are going through it. But at 80 years old, as I mentioned at the top of the show, that's your golden years, right? You're expecting to just take it easy. And here he is, working like a dog, not letting anything slow him down. That is why I had so much respect for Jim Ed Brown. So when we talked about the cancer battle, you're going to hear him, what was his reaction when he was first diagnosed and told? How did he get through it? And, you know, it really does give you a sense of life and puts things into perspective for you when you're going through something like that. And again, I'm not going to claim that I can put myself in his shoes because I totally cannot. Anybody who's gone through any sort of cancer treatment or battle with any sort of a disease or illness, I can't relate. I can't. And I won't even try to pretend that I could. So when you hear somebody talk about their struggle and what they go through, and then his mentality of, I'm going to beat you, cancer, you're not going to slow me down, you're not going to stop me, that is the attitude to have because you don't want to throw in the towel. That's probably the worst thing you can do. And again, I'm not a doctor or medical professional, but having that mentality of, you know what, this is the end, it's going to take my life, that is the last thing you should be thinking of. And listen to Jim Ed Brown telling you why you should think the exact opposite.
Celeb spotting on The Scribble.
You know, last year you were diagnosed with lung cancer, right? And that, it didn't seem to slow you down because that was just late last year. And what's your bill of health now then?
Jeremy, for 5 months, I couldn't sing. Well, for 4 months, I couldn't sing or anything. But I am now in remission. Thank the good Lord above. I am now in remission, and I've just found that out a couple of weeks ago. And whew, what a thrill that is! You know, if you want something to make you jump up and down and shout, that will do it right there. But that was not easy. It was lung cancer. And it was all wrapped all around my esophagus and some arteries and things in there. And the doctors told me at the time, they said, you know what you've got. And I said, yes, I know. And attack it as hard as you can. Let's get rid of it. And they did. They said, well, we're going to knock you down a few times. And they did that too. But I am back now, and I'm getting my energy back. And, you know, I can tell anybody out there that if they want to, you know, if their attitude is right, they can beat any cancer that comes along. They just have to really work at it and aggressively attack it. And I've had some great doctors here, Jeremy. Thank the good Lord above. I tell you what, I didn't know that I had to get sick to find out that I had so many friends and fans because all of the cards and the letters that they sent me, that was so uplifting and all to know that they were all praying for me. And what a thrill. What a thrill.
Absolutely. That's got to be really helpful to get through it all. And
yes, sir.
I can only imagine, well, I can't even really imagine what was going through your head when you get that sort of news. But do you remember what you first thought, though, aside from just get this thing?
Well, I know that whenever they told the lady that there was a lady doctor that found it, and when she called me into her office and told me she was crying, and I said, why are you crying? And she said, well, most people with this cancer don't make it. And I said, well, you can stop your crying because I'm going to make it. And So we started, it was a fast-growing kind. It was small cell, fast-growing. And my doctors, they got on it, and boy, I'll tell you what, the chemo, I did the chemo and radiation all right together, and it really, it wasn't fun, but
No.
you know, you have to take life as it comes to you. Then, and I looked at that as just another bump in the road, which you know you have them every once in a while. But with the help of the man upstairs and all the prayers and all of my friends and family and all, shoo, you have to beat it. That's the only thing I can say. You just have to beat it.
Definitely the right attitude to have, right?
Yes, sir.
Absolutely. Okay, so the new CD is called In Style Again, right? And people can get it.
Yes, sir.
You have it online, and where can people get it?
It is online. You can get it. You can if you want it, you can get it. Find it at iTunes and so many places out wherever you find your music ordinarily. That's where you can go, and it should be there.
Oh, technology is a wonderful thing. A true country music.
That's the truth.
He's a legend, but he won't admit to it. Jim Ed Brown, thank you so much for joining us today.
Jeremy, what a pleasure it is to come in and chat with you. You've got my number. Please call me again.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.
Thank you, sir.
We hear you chirping. Get scribbling. Tweet up the Scribble at The Scribble Show. Join the discussion with Jeremy Bradley. It's all going down right now on Twitter at The Scribble Show and at thescribbleshow.com.
Jeremy Bradley here, back on The Scribble. Again, thank you so much for joining us. And as you just heard, on Twitter at The Scribble Show, thescribbleshow.com, and on SoundCloud and iTunes. This is episode 16 of our show. Now, you know, we've been saluting Jim Ed Brown for the last 26 minutes now, and I have to tell you, this is one of those moments for me is, where were you when, right? Everybody always has those memories of when Princess Diana died, or, you know, or 9/11 and things like that. And I can honestly say that when I got the email, this was Thursday night, when I got the email from Kurt Webster, who was the publicist and a longtime friend of Jim Ed Brown. I was out walking my dogs, and I got the email, and the subject was, actually, I'm just going to grab my phone here because I think I might still have it. The subject is, Grand Ole Opry member Jim Ed Brown has died. And I'm not kidding you, I was quite far from my house, actually the furthest point away from my house when I was walking. And when I read that, my face got cold, and it was very warm outside anyway. And my face got cold, and I just thought, this can't be. This is not the guy that I talked to that was just like, had a new lease on life. And obviously, yes, had gone through, you know, second bout of cancer, and you think he can do it again, right? And so I emailed Kurt, like, right away. And, of course, the dogs are sort of like, okay, are we going? Because we really motor when we walk. We don't... We power walk. We don't just sort of sniff everything and take our time. We mean business when we walk. And I just immediately wrote back to Kurt, you know, I'm so sorry to hear about this. This is sad. And in that moment, I said, we're scrapping the show that we had planned for this week, which is Hulk Hogan and Jerry Springer, and we're doing a tribute because this is a guy that we need to hear from, and we need to play that interview again and really give him that time in the spotlight one more time. So that was my moment. And like I said, it's one of those times when you just want to get back home as quickly as possible to, you know, make a call or listen to some music or whatever it is. And that's, I couldn't get home fast enough. So sad news to get by email, but that's where I was when I heard the news on June 11th, just yesterday. So again, we're live here on The Scribble. Thanks so much for tuning in. Never have we done a live version of this before, but glad to have you with us. And again, the country music world and Grand Ole Opry families are, you know, it's a loss, right? At 81 years old, there are some people who might say, you know what, though? He had a good life. It was his time. You know, why go through the pain and suffering again? I understand that. I don't necessarily agree with it. But again, you know what? Here's living proof that at 80 years old, just last year, months ago, that Jim Ed Brown was able to fight and beat cancer. If he can do it at that age and have that fight in him, you can as well. I want to thank you so much for joining us on this special edition of The Scribble. Again, we're on Twitter at The Scribble Show, thescribbleshow.com, and on SoundCloud and iTunes. So next week, again, Jerry Springer and Hulk Hogan will be joining us for Men's Night. The week after that, June 26th, we are talking with boy and girl bands, Howie D from Backstreet Boys, Mel B from the Spice Girls, one of the Hanson brothers, and Nick Lachey from 98 Degrees will be joining us to talk about boy and girl bands. It's taking you back to the 90s and the early 2000s. And the week after that, July 3rd, we've got some cheapskate tips from my best-selling book. Can't wait to tell you about that. You can go to cheapskatebook.com for more information. My name is Jeremy Bradley. This is The Scribble. Thank you so much for joining us. I will talk to you same time, same place next week. Bye-bye, everybody.
Want more Scribble? Check out thescribbleshow.com for past shows, celebrity interviews, cheapskate tips, and more. That's at thescribbleshow.com and on Twitter at The Scribble Show. The Scribble is a speak-free media presentation.
If you want some real heat,